Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The street echoed with the muffled sounds of the city at rush hour. The honking of horns, the hurried voices, the crunching of shoes on the pavement, nothing foreshadowed the storm that was about to break. At the corner of an avenue lined with official buildings, a black, luxurious car stopped. From inside, a Madame Victoria Lawson, an elegant woman in her 40s, with a dignified bearing and eyes that reflected the quiet strength of those who command silently. Her impeccably tailored outfit and designer handbag only accentuated the natural authority she exuded. A few steps away, Agent Tyler Reed, an arrogant and impetuous police officer, whistled when he saw her crossing the street. He immediately recognized her as a black civilian and, without thinking, judged her suspicious. In his narrow mind, she could not correspond to the image of a respectable person. "Hey! You! Stop!" he yelled, pointing his finger with feigned confidence. Victoria stopped, her unwavering calm a stare that contrasted with the officer's agitation. She merely gave him a cold, serious look. But Reed, irritated by her lack of response and convinced of his authority, crossed the line. He abruptly grabbed her arm and, in a fit of ill-controlled anger, slapped her hard. The sound of the slap cracked through the air like a clap of thunder. The shocked passers-by froze. Victoria, however, stood erect, her eyes flashing with an icy flash. She didn't speak. She didn't move. And behind that apparent calm lay a secret Reed was completely unaware of. This woman wasn't just a respected civilian. Victoria Lawson was the wife of General Marcus Lawson, head of the National Army, a man whose name alone could make the most arrogant men tremble. What Reed didn't yet know was that his slap had just lit a fuse that would explode in his career, his honor, and his life. And Victoria, until then silent, began to plan her response. Victoria Lawson walked confidently down the sidewalk, her heels clicking like a metronome on the hot concrete. Each step was measured, precise, almost military. Her life was built on respect and discipline, not only as the wife of General Marcus Lawson, but also as a woman who imposed her dignity wherever she went. Tyler Reed, an ambitious but arrogant young police officer, saw her and immediately thought he could read her role in the city's hierarchy, a black woman, alone, crossing the street. In his limited mind, she could only be suspicious. "Hey! You, stop!" he shouted. Victoria looked up, without a trace of fear. Her gaze, hard and precise, reflected a silent question: "Who are you to talk to me like that?" But Reed, blinded by his supposed superiority and impatience, stepped forward, grabbed her arm, and shook her lightly. "Do as I say," he snapped, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Victoria didn't react. She stood there, motionless, as if the world around them had stopped moving. The policeman, frustrated by this silence, which he interpreted as insolence, crossed a line no decent man would. He slapped her brutally. The slam echoed through the street. Passers-by jumped. Some whispered, others stared in horror. But Victoria, impassive, didn't let anything show. She straightened, her chin raised, her eyes flashing with icy coldness. Tyler Reed didn't yet know he'd made a historic mistake. This woman was no ordinary civilian. Victoria Lawson was the wife of General Marcus Lawson, head of the National Army, a man whose name could change a man's destiny overnight. As Victoria slowly walked back, an electric sense of anticipation filled the air. Reed, however, had no idea he had just triggered a reaction that would destroy his career and reputation. Victoria Lawson wasn't content to simply endure the humiliation. In her mind, every detail of the incident was recorded, analyzed, and catalogued. The slap wasn't just a physical offense, it was an affront to her dignity, her position, and, above all, to her husband's honor. She arrived home, a sumptuous but elegant apartment, reflecting a life of discipline and control. As soon as she walked through the door, she activated her phone and sent a brief but meaningful message. "Marcus, we have a problem. Tyler Reed." A few minutes later, General Marcus Lawson, a man of imposing charisma and a formidable reputation, entered the living room. His eyes, a piercing steely blue, rested on Victoria with barely perceptible concern. "Tell me exactly what happened," he said in a deep, calm but authoritative voice. Victoria explained every gesture, every word, every expression on Reed's face. Marcus Lawson listened silently, his fists slightly clenched. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "I'll take care of it. But let me handle it. You stay back." Victoria knew her husband never spoke lightly. Marcus Lawson was a military strategist, accustomed to anticipating his opponent's every move. While Reed thought he had merely slapped a woman, he had no idea he had just unleashed the machinery of a man capable of turning situations around in an instant. Meanwhile, Tyler Reed went home, pleased with himself. He could already see himself telling the story to his colleagues, convinced he had imposed his authority. He had no idea of the shockwaves he had just caused. The next morning, Victoria and Marcus put their plan into action. Nothing violent. Nothing rushed. But every action was calculated to expose Reed's arrogance and incompetence. Witnesses were questioned, videos were sought, and soon, Reed's name was circulating through the halls of the military and police hierarchy. Victoria, for her part, simply smiled when asked if she felt threatened. "I never feel threatened. I've never been alone." And while Reed was unaware of the approaching storm, General Lawson was already preparing his counterattack. A lesson was about to be taught, but not just any lesson. A lesson that would remain etched in Reed's memory forever. The next day, Tyler Reed walked into the police station with the familiar arrogance that had protected his career until then. He felt invincible, convinced that no slap could compromise his authority. Little did he know that every action and word of his confrontation with Victoria Lawson had been carefully documented by witnesses and surveillance cameras. Victoria, meanwhile, moved forward with a quiet but relentless strategy. She knew that Reed's direct humiliation would be even more effective if orchestrated intelligently. She turned over the videos and testimonies to the military prosecutor's office, triggering a discreet but swift investigation. Marcus Lawson, a master of discipline and strategy, ensured that every move was precise. His goal wasn't simply to punish Reed, he wanted the young police officer's arrogance to be publicly exposed, so that everyone would understand that no one, regardless of rank, could cross the line with them. Gradually, Reed's reputation began to falter. Colleagues who had once feared or admired him for his misplaced authority began to whisper. Messages circulated discreetly. "Did you see what he did to Mrs. Lawson?" Reed, unaware of everything, continued his routine with the same confidence, believing that nothing could happen to him. But behind his back, Victoria and Marcus were weaving a relentless web. The evidence was there, irrefutable, the assault, the witnesses, the video, nothing could be disputed. Then came the pivotal moment. An administrative meeting was held, where Reed was to answer charges brought by the military prosecutor's office. When he arrived, he expected a simple reprimand, perhaps a warning. But what he found was far more formidable. Facing him stood Marcus Lawson, calm but imposing, at Victoria's side. The gazes of Reed's colleagues, now aware of his actions, were heavy with judgment. Every word, every movement of Reed's was analyzed under the merciless light of military and moral authority. "Tyler Reed," Marcus began in a deep voice, "your behavior yesterday violated the dignity of a citizen and the honor of this institution. We have irrefutable evidence of your violence and abuse of power." Reed's heart sank. His palms sweating, his gaze shifty, he finally realized he was no longer in control of the situation. Every arrogance, every impulsive move, every rash decision had just brought him to the brink of a fall the extent of which he hadn't even imagined. Victoria, silent but triumphant, watched the scene with icy calm. The lesson had just begun. And Tyler Reed was about to discover that some slights never go unpunished. Tyler Reed thought the incident with Victoria Lawson would remain an internal matter, a mere warning that could be erased from his memory and his file. He was sorely mistaken. Victoria and Marcus Lawson had decided that the lesson should be clear and visible to all. No one, not even a police officer, could humiliate a respectable woman with impunity. The next day, articles began circulating in the local media. Witnesses to the scene had spoken out, and footage of the slap, captured by a street surveillance camera, circulated around the city. Every citizen could see Reed's gratuitous violence and arrogance. Social media erupted, some expressed outrage, others praised Victoria's courage. The atmosphere at the station had changed radically. Reed felt the weight of stares and whispers. His colleagues, once intimidated by him, now sized him up with a mixture of surprise and silent reproach. The arrogance that had served as his shield was slowly fading. Victoria, always calm, monitored the reactions with complete control. She knew that true power lies not in direct confrontation, but in the way the truth is revealed. She and Marcus had orchestrated the public presentation with precision, ensuring that Reed could neither defend himself nor manipulate public opinion. General Lawson, using his authority, contacted Reed's superiors and explained the situation to them. What you have before you is not a simple incident. It is an unjustified act of violence, committed by an officer who abused his power. We demand immediate action. Reed felt an icy chill run down his spine. For the first time, he understood the extent of his mistake. Every movement, every impulsive gesture from yesterday, was turning against him like an invisible blade. Victoria, in a soft but firm voice, added, "It's not just about me. It's about principle. Respect and dignity are non-negotiable." And as the media storm intensified, Reed realized he was now alone. His arrogance, impunity, and pride had collapsed under the weight of the truth. This public humiliation was only the beginning. The hardest lesson was yet to come, and Victoria Lawson, with the precision of a military strategist, was preparing to see it through to the end. Tyler Reed woke that morning with a strange, dizzy feeling. The slap he'd given Victoria Lawson now left marks deeper than just his cheek. His reputation was in tatters. The calls from superiors, the persistent messages from above, and the whispers in the hallways weighed on him like a burden impossible to ignore. At the office, every colleague who met his gaze silently judged him. Even his close friends, those who had once blindly supported him, seemed hesitant to speak to him. Reed realized with terror that the slap wasn't just physical, it had set off a chain reaction that threatened his entire career. Meanwhile, Victoria and Marcus pursued their strategy with calculated patience. Marcus had arranged a confidential meeting with military and police authorities to ensure that Reed was held fully accountable. Every witness statement was carefully collected, every piece of evidence verified and consolidated. The goal was not only to punish Reed, but to demonstrate that violence and arrogance had no place in society or the military. Victoria, faithful to her legendary calm, watched the proceedings with a discreet smile. She knew that public humiliation wasn't enough. Reed also needed to understand the true weight of his actions in his personal and professional life. That day, Reed received his first official sanction, an immediate suspension, accompanied by a thorough investigation into his behavior. The news spread like wildfire through the precinct. Reed felt his pride and arrogance melt like snow in the sun. But the Loysons didn't stop there. Victoria knew a real lesson needed to reach Reed's heart and mind, not just his reputation. She began orchestrating situations where her own humiliation and sense of powerlessness would be amplified, while remaining perfectly legal and intelligent. Victoria's every move was calculated to make Reed understand a simple but essential truth: the dignity of a powerful and respected woman is not trifled with. And while Reed desperately tried to regain some semblance of control, he was unaware that Victoria had already planned the next phase of her revenge, the one that would seal her fate for good. Tyler Reed had always believed that his position as a police officer and his arrogance would protect him. But that morning, he realized how alone he was. His colleagues avoided him, his superiors watched him closely, and every move was scrutinized with suspicion. The temporary suspension came with strict restrictions: no contact with the public, a ban on accessing certain files, and mandatory disciplinary training. Victoria, for her part, advanced like a general preparing for battle. She knew that for Reed to understand the gravity of his actions, the isolation had to become tangible. Social media and local media were already amplifying the incident. The outraged messages, public comments, and calls for civic responsibility were creating invisible but intense pressure on Reed. Every day, Tyler Reed felt his world shrink. Where he once reigned with arrogance, there was now only silence and judgment. Military superiors, alerted by Marcus Lawson, no longer tolerated any excuses. Colleagues who once laughed at his off-color jokes now looked the other way, and some openly questioned his integrity and fitness to serve. Victoria observed this decline with an almost preternatural calm. She sought revenge not out of anger, but justice out of strategy. Her goal was simple: to make Reed understand that abuse of power and gratuitous violence cannot go unpunished, especially against those who hold true respect and moral authority. It was during a disciplinary meeting that Reed fully felt the weight of his fall. Marcus Lawson, accompanied by Victoria, calmly but relentlessly laid out all the accumulated evidence. The colleagues and superiors present listened attentively. Every word, every projected image, demonstrated the extent of Reed's misdeed. "You thought you could humiliate a respected woman without consequence," Marcus said in a deep voice. "Today, we show you that true power lies in justice, discipline, and respect." Tyler Reed felt his heart clench. He was being cornered, not by physical force, but by truth and the unwavering moral authority of the Lawsons. Victoria, silent but triumphant, knew that the next phase of the lesson would permanently scar Reed and anyone who believed violence could be ignored. The isolation was complete, but the revenge was only just beginning. Tyler Reed believed the next few days would simply be an agonizing wait before returning to a normal routine. He was wrong. Victoria Lawson and General Marcus Lawson had planned a final, strategic, and public confrontation that would make Reed realize that his actions had irreversible consequences. The event took place in an official police station meeting room, chosen for its visibility and seriousness. All of Reed's colleagues were invited, as well as representatives from the military and police hierarchy. The tension was palpable. Reed entered, still trying to impose his authority with his gaze, but he immediately sensed that the atmosphere had changed. Every glance he received expressed disappointment and silent judgment. Victoria stood beside Marcus, impeccably erect and straight. Her expression was calm, but her aura commanded respect and gravity. She didn't need to shout or gesticulate, every movement, every silence spoke for her. Marcus opened the meeting. "Today we are not here to punish with anger, but to restore justice and show what an abuse of power entails." Then Victoria spoke. "Tyler Reed, yesterday you thought you could put me down, slap me around, and ignore my dignity. Today, you're going to understand what it means to cross the line." At that moment, images of the incident were projected for everyone present. Reed's every gesture, every expression, was visible. The murmurs in the room turned into an oppressive silence. Reed felt his face burn with shame. Marcus added, "You are suspended and a full investigation into your behavior is underway. Your career is at stake, but more importantly, your reputation and honor." Victoria concluded, in a cold but firm voice. "Violence and arrogance are never weapons to command respect. True respect is earned through integrity, discipline, and dignity. You just learned that lesson, Tyler Reed." Reed froze. For the first time, he understood that his actions were not simply a mistake, but a fundamental violation of ethics, morality, and human respect. The public confrontation was not just a humiliation, it was a lesson etched in his memory, irreversible and vivid. Victoria, silent but triumphant, watched as Reed realized the extent of his fall. The message was clear: no one could humiliate a woman with impunity, least of all the wife of the head of the army. The final lesson had been delivered. But Reed's path to redemption, if there was one, had only just begun. After the public confrontation, Tyler Reed was forever scarred. His name circulated throughout the precinct and beyond. Colleagues who had once feared or respected him now viewed him with suspicion or pity. Even outside of work, the local media had picked up on the incident, and Reed felt his private life becoming a minefield. Victoria Lawson, true to her strategic approach, left nothing to chance. She knew that for Reed to fully understand the gravity of his actions, the repercussions had to be comprehensive, visible, and lasting. Her friends and influential contacts in the media and military hierarchy helped reinforce the message: arrogance and gratuitous violence come at a price. Reed tried to regain his authority internally, but he quickly discovered that every move was under scrutiny. Citizens and colleagues alike were no longer fooled, he could no longer hide behind his position. Formal complaints, increased surveillance, and social isolation made every day a struggle. Victoria, for her part, continued her life with Olympian calm. Her husband Marcus was proud of his wife's mastery and strategic intelligence. Together, they had demonstrated that dignity and discipline can triumph over arrogance and violence. That evening, Reed found himself alone in his apartment. The loneliness weighed heavily. He replayed every gesture, every word he had spoken, every look Victoria and Marcus had given him during the confrontation. Shame and regret washed over him. He understood that his career, his image, and his honor had just suffered an irreversible blow. Victoria, for her part, wasn't rejoicing in a personal victory. She knew her triumph lay in justice restored and a lesson taught. No words were needed for Tyler Reed to understand the importance of respect and integrity. This step marked the near end of the process. The final phase, where Reed would face the final consequences of his actions, was not far off. Victoria and Marcus Lawson had demonstrated that dignity is never bargained away and that every unjust act sooner or later finds its judgment. Tyler Reed felt the end approaching. Every day, every look, every word reminded him of the humiliation and the lesson imposed by Victoria and Marcus Lawson. But the final punishment had yet to be delivered. The decisive day arrived. In an official room, Reed faced a disciplinary committee composed of high-ranking military and police officials. All the facts had been compiled: videos, testimonies, investigative reports. Nothing could be denied or minimized anymore. Marcus Lawson spoke gravely. "Tyler Reed, your actions violated not only the rules of professional conduct, but also human dignity. After a full review of the evidence, we have decided upon your immediate dismissal." Reed felt his world crumble. His pride, his career, his authority, everything crumbled in an instant. The murmurs in the room confirmed what he'd suspected for days: no one respected or feared him anymore. Victoria, still upright and calm, added, "This punishment is not motivated by revenge, but by justice. You have been judged by your actions. Always remember that respect cannot be forced through violence or arrogance." For Reed, the shock was complete. Every moment of his professional life now reverberated with the weight of his mistakes. He understood that the lesson wasn't just personal, it served as an example for anyone who might have believed they could act without consequence. Victoria and Marcus Lawson left the room without another word, leaving Reed to face his reality. Victoria's moral and strategic power had triumphed. Her name would henceforth remain associated with dignity and respect, while Reed was left to rebuild his life, humiliated and scarred by his own choices. The story left no doubt: true strength lies not in violence or imposed power, but in intelligence, discipline, and the courage to stand up for what is right. A few weeks after Tyler Reed's discharge, life returned to normal for Victoria Lawson. She once again walked the streets with the same poise and calm that had always characterized her. But this time, she felt a newfound respect emanating from every glance. Passers-by, colleagues, and even some members of the military administration greeted her with implicit gratitude, aware of what she had faced and defended. Marcus Lawson, at her side, shared the quiet pride of having seen his wife handle a situation that would have broken many others. Together, they had demonstrated that dignity and justice are not negotiable, and that every unjust action eventually meets its judgment. As for Tyler Reed, he had to face the consequences of his actions: shame, career loss, and a damaged reputation. The slap he had inflicted on Victoria Lawson was no longer a mere impulsive act, but a symbol of his moral and professional defeat. He understood that some mistakes can never be erased and that true authority is never imposed through violence. Victoria, however, did not rejoice in her personal victory. Her triumph lay in the restored justice and in the example she had set. She had shown that a woman, even in the face of arrogance and brutality, could defend her dignity with intelligence and determination. As she stepped out for a walk in the park, Victoria took a deep breath of the fresh air. The sun illuminated the trees and streets, and for the first time since the incident, she felt completely free. She had won more than just a battle against an arrogant man, she had shown that dignity and respect are invincible when defended with courage and wisdom. And in the hearts of all who had followed this story, one clear message remained: one cannot humiliate honor and dignity without paying the price.